George, I've had the opportunity to listen to many of your speeches, and there's a theme that you return to often that is very important, particularly to this audience: faith. So what does faith mean to you personally, and how has it guided you, especially during moments of hopelessness?
First of all, thank you, and thank you everyone. Thank you, Paulette. Thank you, Jim. Thank you everyone for inviting me and for all that you do. Far too often in this world, the people that do the most are thanked the least. So thank you. Faith. So my first memory of being alive was dying in a hospital at the age of 2.5, 48 years ago. I had bacterial meningitis. It was bad. My parents had 2 children in the ICU, both of whom were basically dying. That's my first conscious memory. Last year, nearly 50 years later, I have to give a speech in Jerusalem. I'd just been to meet Patriarch, who is one of the kindest people you'll ever come across. And I'm standing overlooking Mount Scopus giving a speech in front of Hebrew University. And then they take me to the brain facility of Hebrew University. So young George, the 2.5-year-old boy with the bacterial meningitis, and there's a whole story behind it. And then fast forward 50 years later, 48 years later, and old George, or less young George, with the top professor of neurology of the state of Israel sitting and having a meeting with him. And I told him what happened to me. And I said, this is my story, Professor Leon. And he listened very carefully. And then after I finished, I said to him, Professor Leon, what are the chances of surviving that? And he said, George, if you had told me 10 minutes ago, I would have said 0. So that's 50 years of life. So you ask, what does faith mean to me? How could it not mean everything to me? How could it not, with many stories like that in my life, where almost die, and by the grace of God, that deep breath somehow prevents me literally from dying. That wasn't the first time. So faith is crucial to me. I would also say hope is too. But you see, faith is a state of soul, the way hope is a state of mind. It's easier to be hopeful if you're faithful. It's hard to be hopeful if you're faithless. I grew up in the Greek Orthodox community of North London. We were somehow less than, but we wanted to become more than. Don't look down at us. Don't look down at anyone in this world, right? So much of what we've done, Mike, is because we felt looked down upon. It's because we had faith. It's because the faith that we had bred the hope that we have. Maybe it's easier to lose faith than gain hope. I don't know, maybe, right? So for me, it's everything. And let me just give you another example, going back now to a few months ago. So I'm in a children's cancer facility in Panama. Okay? A place where you'd expect no hope, but you had lots of it. A place where you'd expect no faith, but you had it in abundance. So we get taken around, and this is more of a psychological support facility than a treatment facility. But treating the brain and treating the soul influences the outcome of the body. So the first young child that we met was called Keisha, 2 years old, no eyes. So she lost her eyes due to cancer. Her mother was looking after her, was so full of joy. I couldn't believe what I'm seeing here. Like, why are you joyful? Well, why are you faithful? Why are you hopeful? Well, because her daughter's alive. So it's that perspective that can breed gratitude, right? But I think the starting point is faith. Then we walk upstairs and you see a lot of pain. You feel, a lot of pain, but a lot of hope. It's very strange when you go to a place of suffering. It can be both, right? And we walk into a room, and there is a few children standing there, young kids, no hair. So clearly they're under treatment. 4-year-old boy walked straight up to me, grabbed my hands and wouldn't let go for 15 minutes. So he gave me faith without him realizing it. And I somehow gave him hope with realizing it. So, we live in a world where, the algorithms are diminishing perspective without us even realizing. Therefore, faith can get diminished. I was just saying before, again, going back to those old words, pandabros. This is how I grew up. This came from my grandmother, we've all got our grandmother stories and our grandfather stories, obviously, right? How blessed are we to live in this country? How blessed are we to live in this country? So what? She's 21 and the Germans invade and start killing old men in the village square? And she can still say pandabros? So what's the root of it? The root of it is faith. You can't think that if you're not faithful. Κάθε εμπόδιο για καλό. Every obstacle for the better. It's the same concept. This is what has kept the Greek tribe together throughout centuries against the odds, in spite of the odds, because of the odds. There's only, 20 million Greeks in the world? How many? There's 8 billion people. But we are a tiny percentage. Hopelessness. I get hopeless. I'm a human being like you and everyone else here. What do? I gain perspective. I go to places of suffering willingly. I read history. I get perspective of those who came before us. Again, how fortunate are we to be living in America in 2026, to be in Phoenix, Arizona, and not in countless other parts of the world. I reflect. Far too often we react in 2026. A reaction is not going to provoke reflection. Reflection will provoke ideas. Ideas provoke actions. Actions provoke progress. So if we are constantly wed to our phones, constantly on social media, that's going to be a mortgage and a cloud to our capacity to develop original thought. Why were the philosophers so smart 2,500 years ago? Read it. It was pure thought. It's thought from the soul. Somehow it got polluted a little bit. So in summary, faith is very important. I'm very proud to be here. Thank you.
So you're being honored with the Archbishop Iakovos Leadership Award, named after a man known for his commitment to civil rights, unity, and moral courage. Okay, a couple more questions before we open it up to the audience. 12 years ago, your wife Nitsia was on this stage receiving the Archbishop Iakovos Award for the Seleni Institute, which has become the world's #1 provider of maternal mental health care. Can you reflect on Seleni's evolution over the years, what it's grown into today, and the role Nitsia has played in shaping that journey?
First of all, thank you for seeing in her what few saw then and everyone sees now. Vision. Thank you, Paulette and others. Okay. Secondly, let me be blunt. I adore my wife. She's a gentleness, vision, kindness creature that has a lot of resilience in her. You don't see it at hello, but in that girl is steel. Okay? We can't really elect what comes at us. What's going to come at us is going to come at us. But we certainly have sovereignty over how we respond. And she is the embodiment of that. Can you be kind? Yeah. Can you always be kind? Hard. Can you be kind when others are cruel? Can you? She can. So this is a very special soul, but I'm truly blessed to be married. And I'm very happy to tell the whole world. Okay? Seleni. So, Seleni, let's just go to the genesis of the word. Selene, goddess of the moon, emotions, and Eleni, very brave mother in the 1940s that saved her 4 children. The concept being you need to be brave to confront your emotion. I don't have a problem to tell the whole world that I saw a therapist when I was 20 years old. I'm proud of them. I had lots of responsibility. We had a terrible problem in our company. We had terrible problems at home. I sought the help and I got it. But it was brave to do that, then especially. So the whole point, what she wanted to do was to destigmatize maternal mental health issues, reproductive mental health issues, IVF issues, miscarriage, stillbirth, postpartum anxiety, postpartum depression, and the like. Mothers are important, lest we forget. Why didn't mothers have that support network? Why? I think the statistics are 1 in every 4 or 1 in every 5 pregnancies becomes a miscarriage. You know? They just had a miscarriage. We have 4 children. Terrible. 15 years ago, 20 years ago, before Seleni, you have to bury it, forget about it, and pretend nothing's wrong. But you bury trauma, trauma will come back and eat you in some other way. If you process it and you confront it and you work through it, you become wiser, more grateful, and more empathic. So that's the mission that Seleni set out to do. Very hard, many currents against us every step of the way. I mean, what you read about us before, and it's us, Mike. It's not me. I'm sorry, it's a team effort. There is a system, there is an ecosystem all around the world. I happen to be the chairman for now. Many people didn't believe in her. Many people didn't believe in Seleni. So what happened? It triggered the don't look down at us gene in George, which just said, we will do this, come what may. We will just do it. And so, you know, I was like the force in some ways behind it, because whenever I'd hear that people would say no and people sort of diminishing her, and so what? Mothers are not important? So you think that a mother can have a stillbirth and just go back to work the next day? I mean, come on. That's one of the great traumas of the world. So what does Seleni become? There are really 3 elements. First of all is the clinic. So there's a clinic in New York City that sees between 200 and 250 women and families every week. There's a team of clinicians. Every week, yeah. I mean, there's a team of clinicians, there's a system. The second is advocacy. So I can't tell you how many heads of state, governors, mayors even, have asked us to bring Seleni to their city, their country, their state. Now, we can't, we have our limitations, but just being that wanted shows what the need is. You know, maybe the younger people, or, you know. Let me just give you one example of something that happened recently at Seleni, just to understand the trauma that this organization is dealing with. Because it's not just the relatively sort of, I'm not going to call it light, but lighter side of postpartum anxiety, postpartum depression, although that can be a lethal thing. And there are people in this room, for sure, that have suffered it. But it's also a crisis unit. So recently, a young lady was 9 months pregnant. And forgive me for saying this, but it's important. And, you know, ready to give birth, with all the joys that that brings. And she couldn't feel the heartbeat. She calls the mother. The mother says, call the doctor immediately. She calls the doctor. The doctor says, come and see me immediately. So she gets in a car and immediately goes to the doctor. Baby died. No baby. So this young lady has got to give birth to a dead child. Now just think about that for a second. So Seleni's mission is about democratizing the care that that family needs, because that's intragenerational trauma if you don't deal with it. So one of this lady's friends knew about Seleni, and several days later said, you need to go and be treated for this. So that's what we do.
Be treated for this.
Absolutely.
You said it that way.
Treated, but Mike, we are fragile humans. You know, what is real strength? Is real strength being the big guy, or is real strength the ability and the strength to show weakness and vulnerability? I told you, I saw a therapist when I was 20, and I'm telling 400 people the same thing. I'm not ashamed of it. It helped me. What are the most important concepts in history? Well, one of them is know thyself. Well, how are you going to know thyself if you don't analyze yourself? Where did know thyself come from? It came from Socrates. So you think I know myself? It may take generations for that to happen. But I certainly give it a good shot of learning. And, we all go through trauma. We all need help. And it's, I believe, the strong ones that search it out and seek for it.
Also, very well said. Very well said. Final question before we open it up to the room. And I see a microphone there, but I don't. There's one in the middle there. Yeah. Okay, great. Philanthropy is deeply rooted in Greek values and culture. Can you speak about your commitment to giving back, how philanthropy has shaped your life, and how this connects to your Greek heritage in a broader sense of purpose?
So I think philanthropy starts with being kind. Kindness is free, but it's not always a given, right? It doesn't cost to be kind. So let's start with there. So you can be a philanthropic person that doesn't practice philanthropy. So it starts with that, and it starts with, treating people with respect. And, again, I say, can you be kind when others are cruel to you? I don't understand why people are cruel with some of the things that we've done. I don't get it. It's like, but then the Achilles heel of humanity is zelia. It's just an unfortunate thing. And I don't want to understand why people are cruel. We will be what we are. From then on, padabros. So a lot of the, let's say, institutional philanthropy that we did started about 15 years ago. And it started with Concordia, and it started with Seleni, and it started with our internship program, and it started with our entrepreneurship program in Greece, and it started with all the help that we gave because we felt obligated to and because we could. So, what Concordia has become? I remember the first meeting, sitting with Matt and Nick and a summit for 100 people, and well, look what it's become. Had we tried to control it, it would have had an invisible ceiling on it. So all the stuff that we do is all empowerment based. Concordia was set up, it was constructed to become the best version of itself. If it had been seen as a ward of Libra Group or a vassal of state, it wouldn't have been able to do that. So that's it. All these organizations that we've created are not designed so that we can be control maniacs and influence everything. They are. I was telling someone today in a meeting, show me the construct and I'll show you the outcome. Second, philanthropy in its truest sense, I believe, is giving without expecting to get. Philotimo, right? You get it back in other ways. We visited St. Basil's. So I went to West Point about a month ago and taught at West Point. And you know how many times I heard the word service? So many times throughout the day from young cadets whose ultimately are going to be the first line of deterrent and the last line of defense of the values that we crave for and have the most. And then we went to St. Basil's. So we went to St. Basil's, which is a beautiful little place. And I will not forget sitting there with Father Costa and his team. And at some point in time, I said to him, Father Costa, how can we be of service to you, please? And he looked at me as if I was crazy. He said, he almost started crying. I said, well, how can we be of service to you? And he said, he's never heard that before. I said, come on, you must have heard that before. He said, no, I haven't. So being there was philanthropic. Asking him was philanthropic. It's not just giving money in exchange for something. It starts with being kind and generous. You can give many things, from advice to inspiration to belief, to one sentence to a young person that can change the trajectory of that young person's life, to giving money too. And what we tried to do, Mike, was almost like redefine philanthropy. Είμαστε ελεύθεροι, because we don't need anything back. With the irony being that we get so much more than we'd ever expect back. What is wealth? What is everything? What is nothing? What's a blessing? What's a curse? Was I cursed to be sick at the age of 2.5, or was I blessed? Well, to me, it's a blessing. maybe to someone else as a curse. It triggered 34 years of medical problems. But I not once saw it as a curse. Not one time. You think you can excavate the insight from within easily? It's hard. You know, is it a blessing to be looked down upon or a curse? It depends what you do with it. Bring it on. Don't tell me it can't be done. You know, it's like I remember going back to Seleni again. All these people saying, no. I will support my wife to change the world. And then I'm free. And here we are. 14 years later, Paulette. You remember? It was a great day. Do you remember her speech? Yeah, it was a beautiful speech that Nedzia gave. Yes, always. Always. Κάθε εμπόδιο καλό. That is what has united the Greek tribe throughout time, that concept. If we didn't have that concept, maybe we wouldn't have made it. Maybe we wouldn't be sitting here. We'd be a vassal of, I don't know, the Ottomans, the Germans, the Russians, I don't know what.
So, questions from the room. First of all, thank you, Bert.
Oh, is this on? Oh, it is on.
Doctor.
Well, yesterday we spoke a lot about being proud of our history, and it was such a nice thing to reminisce with so many people. But today, and Mike and George, both of you seem to be touching a little bit on family and the leadership family, et cetera. And I know my wife and I missed last year, and this year we said, we miss a lot of you people, and we're so happy to see everybody and family. But it's so nice to see that we're connected, that this family, our leadership family or our Greek family, is connected. So George, you're a wonderful philanthropist. That's wonderful. But the story that is especially moving to me, and I'd like you to tell the group, because it's specifically about the Greek family, is the one about the gentleman that was working for you that you helped. Do you know what I'm talking about? Can you tell them that story?
That's a long list, I think.
The one that wanted to pursue it working with you and for your company.
Is this the inspiration for the internship program 15 years ago?
I was going to encourage you to talk about
Perhaps.
So yeah, that's
So,
a remarkable thing.
First of all, Dr. George, thank you for all you do and everyone who you help. So I think you mean this one story, which is a very great story. But anyway, if it's not, at least we'll have one good story to talk about. So 2010, this is 16 years ago. Greece is in crisis. Families are destroyed. There's no hope. It's a terrible time. My brother Constantine used to be the vice chairman of Libra Group at the time. He then stepped down a few years ago. It's now Nick, another brother. And he was in Greece, in Chios, which is where my mother's family is from, which is where we spent our summers. And he has a house there. And at the house, there is a guy working there called Fannis. And after 4 weeks of being there, Fannis goes out to my brother and says, Logothetis, can I please meet you? Constantine says, of course, Fanny, Ella, sit down. Let's talk now. He says, no. I can't meet you now. I need 10 minutes. So Constantine with his swimming trunks, sits there and waits for Fannis. So Fannis goes downstairs, showers, shaves, puts on a suit, puts on a tie, picks up his briefcase, and comes to meet Constantine. Constantine is sitting there, and Fannis is dressed in a suit, and he says, Mr. Logothetis, I took this job for 4 weeks in order to meet you now for 10 minutes. I'm 26 years old. I grew up in Chios. I managed to get myself into college in the United States. I worked many jobs to pay for the tuition. My brother worked tables to contribute family to my degree, to the cost of my degree. I've come back to Greece and I have no hope. I have no future. I can't get a job. I'm an electrical engineer. And he gave a whole speech about his capabilities. Please give me one chance to show you what I can do. So Constantine is flawed. Needless to say, we gave him a chance. Okay? He worked like a maniac. He worked within our tribe where we expect miracles always. As I say to the leadership in our group, don't work here if you don't expect a miracle. If we set up Seleni, it better become the top maternal mental health institute in the world. You better do it. So the expectation, what do you expect of people, is a very important driver as to what they become, especially young people. Where is Fanny's today? So Fanny's today is the chief operating officer of a 100% Libra Group subsidiary called Euroenergy. Euroenergy is headquartered in Greece, employs, I think, 60 people across 7 countries, has got a 1.6 gigawatt pipeline of projects being developed and built across Croatia, Romania, Greece, Cyprus, Poland, Latvia. I say Latvia, it's not always good. We don't always succeed. How can one always succeed, right? Beware of that. And I called them the other day because we had just acquired a huge pipeline in Greece. We haven't announced that yet, so anyway, yes. Yes, I know, it's all safe, good. We haven't disclosed that yet. So, and I called them. I said, Fanny. He says, yeah. I said, do you remember when you started? He said, yeah. I said, bravo, man. You should be proud of what you've done. And he couldn't then speak because this old Greek way of philotimon, honor and code that can be diluted. And we have to preserve that dilution or at least minimize that dilution. And he's the number 2 guy of a company that's got a $2 billion investment program across 7 countries. And he started off as a guy working in my brother's house, getting the job in order to meet him for 10 minutes. That's family, you see. Family is many things. That's tribe. That's being honest to people. That's, most people in this world, Dr. George, are good. But I've also seen the deepest of pain. I've seen the devil's work. It's terrible. It's horror. So I've seen a lot. And that, most people are good. There is evil, and there are bad people. When I say bad, I mean people that are selfish, that will put themselves first always, and that are jealous, that are envious. You can't be happy if you're jealous. How can you be? You're not free if you're jealous. You have a ceiling of mental progress and acuity with that basis. If you look at someone else and say, well, I'm envious of them, I'm jealous of them, as opposed to, I'm competitive. It's okay to be competitive. It's not okay to be jealous or envious. And that jealousy and that selfishness drives the badness. But most people are good. The good ones just don't have as much a microphone sometimes. So, Fanny will probably see this and, alla takatafere. 15 years of difficulty and agony and what have you. I mean, when Mike introduced me, it's like I'm cringing. It's hard. Everything we do is hard. If it's not hard, it's not worth doing.
Your Honor, I think you were next.
Thank you.
Mr. Logothetis, we were speaking of 2 important values in our religious and cultural tradition of philoxenia and as well as hospitality and philanthropia, right? Philoxenia and philanthropia. These 2 concepts are deeply contrary to the political discourse of cruelty that we see throughout the world. Can you speak to how we might be able to combat this discourse of cruelty that we see too often?
Yeah, thank you. Look, I think aside from that, also the degradation of our planet has been subordinated to the demonization of our politics. Let's just start with that, right? And the survivability of humankind. I think every time there is a new information revolution, it gives birth to a social revolution. So, you had I'm not going to say stability, but relative stability. All of a sudden the printing press comes, people read it, they rise up, they go to the palace and they kill the king. I mean, I'm simplifying the complex, but it's a new information delivery system. So I say what I say with that all in mind. I think, what technology has done it's democratized information and it's weaponized information. But what is information? Information is not just what you read. This is information. How do you feel in this room? What's the layout of this room? Do we feel a sense of community? What is community? I'm sorry, but an online community is not a community. It's an online community. This is a community where you can speak to someone, where you can talk to them, where you can see their eyes, where you can see how they feel. So I think, we're in the midst of this social revolution that has spawned from the information revolution. And I don't think most people are aware. I think the more aware we are, that's the antidote. I think that social media is something that it can be such a, when you match the natural narcissism of the human being to likes, comments, that's not healthy. That's going to feed the narcissism. It's not going to temper it. I also think that, very wise men designed the world order in 1945 that had suffered so much for the previous 30, 40 years. People talk about the great 50s. Okay, great. What about the 1940s, the 1930s, the 1920s? So, whereas the ones that designed the world in 1919, they designed it from punishment. And then look what happened. So, we can only be what we can be. Fly our Greek flag, fly our Greek American flag, fly our American flag, be grateful for what we have. If one ever wakes up ungrateful, just pick up a book from 1938 and read it. Or pick up a book from 1944, or 1929, or 1960. Take your pick. The further back you go, the worse it was. But it's almost like we've been degratified because we've lost our perspective. And it's perspective that gives gratitude. So we can only do all we can do. The other thing is, I will not waste what is vested in me. Are you going to waste what's vested in you? Are we going to waste what's vested in us? No. Sorry, I get very passionate about these sorts of things. Paulette.
George, I think, truthfully, listening to you talk today, if there is such a thing as reincarnation, the good Lord is going to send you back as a priest or a hierarch. Trust me. But you and I met when you first arrived from London together with your lovely wife, Nitsa. And I was so impressed because George said to me, I'm here to help my wife. She wants to start this organization and I'm here for her. So I went back to my office, thought about it, and I decided to ask her to be one of our speakers and also to honor her with the Award for Excellence because I felt she would be an example for other women who wanted to become involved and help others. And she has done a remarkable job. Thank the good Lord with your support and with the support of the people. She has, every time she and I meet, we embrace. I thank her, we hug each other, and she's really, and that's part of that success is for you, but I know how proud you are. But I also have to tell you that I was so impressed, first of all, when I saw you at the Ecumenical Patriarch dinner that you graciously hosted. George spoke and he touched my heart because he told the story about that child with cancer and other stories. And I said, this is a person I want to bring to Leadership 100. Why? Why? Because Leadership 100 is, as you have heard for the last few days, it's a program where we have learned from the good Lord. We've been blessed and we've learned to give back. And I think, George, you are symbolic of that because you are humble. You are not out there promoting yourself, but you have helped people all over the world. And when I asked you and you graciously accepted, and I must commend your marvelous staff, I got to meet them all one by one, to work with them by Zoom, and they are all young. I want you all to notice.
And what?
They are young. Irete is a graduate of Harvard. Juliana's working, the other two people at the table. They are all young people, but they are so professional. I had the privilege to work with Archbishop Iakovos, as you know, a lifetime, and he was a professionalist in every way. Your team excels in that. They are fabulous, and I want to thank you. But my question to you, George, is we have 600 people listening to you today. And when I sent out the brochure that you were going to be our speaker, you would be amazed from all parts of the country, including Greece, the calls that I received. Bravo, Sekharitiria. And I said, for what? And they said, you got Mr. Logothetis. And I said, yes, and please don't jinx it because he's already committed to me. But what I would like to ask you, and I know you're going to meet with the young people in a little while, but my question is, many of the parents here come because they want their children to get involved. What advice would you give to help these young professionals find their way back into the church?
Paulette, first of all, thank you for your passion, kindness, and empathy. A rare combination. Look, all tribes, organizations, families, companies, countries need to reform. We reform all the time. Seleni we are constantly in reformation mode. So I just put that out there as a, it's a good thing to reform. It's a good thing to improve. It's necessary, right? Reflection over reaction. Do you know when I reflect the most? Is when I go to a cemetery or when I go to church. You want gratitude? Go to a cemetery. Again, you know what I'm about to say. Go to Arlington. Stand there and feel what sacrifices have given us what freedoms. Why us? Why not them? So, going to church is a place of reflection, of conceptualizing, of, the christening and the funeral, the beginning and the end of this life. And how long are we here for? Not long. It's one blink. I remember my grandmother when she was 95 years old, sitting in Chios on her balcony, and all of a sudden she went completely quiet. I said, Tiniga, yeah. Yorgomo. I said, what is it? And she said, I'll do it in English. You see that rock over there? I said, yeah. She goes, I remember playing on that rock when I was 5 years old, Yorgomo. What happened to the years? I'm 95. So that perspective, right? And I think the church, religion, faith can provide that to us. If we reflect, if we constantly react, you're mortgaging, what did I say before? I came up with a line. It was a good line, I think. You mortgage the capacity for original thought. So what I would say is go to church with your children, teach them, show them the importance of being at peace. Go to the funerals, go to the weddings. I mean, the church is an umbrella for all of these great, tragic events in our lives. It's a stable force that's always there.
George, great to have you with us. Thank you for all your congratulations.
Thank you.